Emmanuella Clark woke up on Christmas Eve morning, believing she was flying home to Seoul with her husband's family. By noon, she was standing alone in a frozen airport terminal, 8 months pregnant, watching their private jet disappear into the snow-thick sky. Her mother-in-law's final words still burned in her ears. "A street girl from Chicago doesn't belong in a dynasty like ours. Consider yourself dismissed." They'd taken everything. Her passport, her credit cards, her dignity. Left her with nothing but a dying phone and a baby kicking against her ribs like it could sense the betrayal. The terminal was freezing. Christmas carols played mockingly overhead. Emmanuella's hands shook as she stared at her phone, 3% battery, and tried calling her brother. No answer. She typed out a desperate text, her vision blurring with tears. "They abandoned me. Terminal 4, Gate B. I'm pregnant. I can't do this alone. Please." She hit send as her screen went black. 7,000 miles away, in a penthouse overlooking Seoul's frozen skyline, a phone buzzed. Jin Min, the Ice King, the man whose enemies vanished like smoke, stared at the message. He didn't recognize the number, but he recognized her. 8 months ago, New York, one night that was supposed to mean nothing. His jaw tightened as he traced her location. Then he made a single call. "Prepare the jet. We're going to get what's mine." Before you dive into this saga of revenge, power, and unexpected love, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. It started with a smile. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Park, had smiled at her that morning over breakfast in the hotel suite. "Wear something comfortable for the flight, dear. It's a long journey home." Emmanuella had believed her. She'd believed all of them. The car ride to the private terminal had been silent, but she'd chalked it up to the early hour. Her husband, Daniel Park, sat beside her scrolling through his phone, his jaw tight. She'd reached for his hand. He'd pulled away. At the gate, everything unraveled. Mrs. Park took Emmanuella's purse under the guise of holding it while she used the restroom. When she returned, the family was already boarding. Emmanuella moved to follow, but her father-in-law blocked the jet stairs like a wall of expensive cologne and contempt. "Your boarding pass, Miss Clark," the attendant said, hand extended. Emmanuella's stomach dropped. It's Mrs. Park, and my mother-in-law has my purse." "Miss Clark." "Mrs." Park's voice cut through the winter air like a blade wrapped in silk. "Let's not make a scene." She descended the stairs, every click of her Louboutins deliberate. "You've been a delightful experiment. But dynasties aren't built on charity cases from Chicago projects." "What are you talking about?" Emmanuella's voice cracked. "Daniel." Her husband appeared at the jet door, his face carved from ice. "You were supposed to be temporary, a phase. My mother warned me, but I thought I could make you fit." He looked at her swollen belly with something close to disgust. "That child will have the Park name removed from every document. My lawyers already have the papers." The baby kicked hard, as if protesting its own erasure. Mrs. Park pulled out her phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward Emmanuella. "We had a private investigator look into your condition. Paternity is such a delicate matter, after all." The screen showed a medical report, DNA analysis, probability percentages that made Emmanuella's blood turn to ice. "That child you're carrying? It's not my son's. So tell me, Miss Clark, whose bastard are you trying to pass off as a Park heir?" Emmanuella's world tilted. "That's impossible. I never, Daniel and I." "April 2nd, Mrs. Park interrupted coldly. "New York, some charity gala Daniel couldn't attend." "But you went anyway, didn't you?" "Came back to the hotel at 4 a.m, reeking of expensive cologne that wasn't his." She smiled, sharp as a knife. "Did you think we wouldn't notice? Did you think we wouldn't investigate? The night in New York, the man at the bar, the champagne, and the way he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room." She remembered fragments: his hands, his voice, the hotel room that wasn't hers. But she'd been so drunk, and the next morning he was gone, and she'd convinced herself it was a mistake she could bury. "I didn't know," Emmanuella whispered. "I swear I didn't. Save it for someone who cares." Mrs. Park opened Emmanuella's purse and removed her passport, credit cards, and phone charger with surgical precision. She handed back only the phone and the empty wallet. "You're free now. Go find whoever fathered that mistake and make him deal with it. The Parks don't clean up whores' messes." She dropped the purse at Emmanuella's feet like scraps for a dog. The jet door closed. The engines roared. And Emmanuella stood there, watching her entire life take off into the snow-thick sky, while Christmas music played mockingly through the terminal speakers. The screen went black before she could even confirm the message had sent. Emmanuella stared at the dead phone in her trembling hands, then at the crowd of travelers rushing past her like she was invisible. Families laughed. Children squealed about Santa. Everyone had somewhere to go, everyone but her. She tried to stand, but a sharp pain ripped through her lower back and wrapped around her belly like a vice. Not now. Please, God, not now. She gripped the edge of a plastic chair and breathed through it, the way the prenatal videos had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The pain didn't care about breathing techniques. When it finally released her, she was sweating despite the cold. False labor, she told herself. Just Braxton Hicks. The baby wasn't due for another month, but her body didn't seem to know that. She needed to move. Find someone. Airport security. A charging station. Anything. But when she tried to take a step, another contraction hit. Harder this time, stealing her breath and buckling her knees. She caught herself on a trash bin, gasping, and a businessman swerved around her without a glance. Miss, you okay? A janitor stopped, concern creasing his weathered face. Emmanuella tried to smile, tried to say she was fine, but the words came out as a whimper. I need to charge my phone, please. I don't have... There's a charging station by Gate C, he said gently. But honey, you look like you need a doctor. She shook her head. Doctors meant hospitals. Hospitals meant bills she couldn't pay. She had to reach her brother first, had to get somewhere safe. She clutched her belly, where her baby was either protesting the stress or preparing to arrive into a world that had already rejected them both, and started the long walk toward Gate C. Every step felt like walking through broken glass. Jin Min didn't do distractions. He'd built an empire on focus, on the ability to see 3 moves ahead while his enemies were still contemplating their first. So when his phone buzzed during a meeting that would determine the fate of a shipping conglomerate, he almost ignored it. Almost. Unknown numbers didn't reach this phone. His personal line was guarded better than nuclear codes. Yet there it was, a message dripping with desperation, a location pin, and the kind of raw fear that most people only felt once in their lives right before they died. He opened the message. Read it twice. Then he pulled up the location data and felt something cold and sharp slide between his ribs. Terminal fear, Gate B, international departures, 8 months pregnant. 8 months. His mind, trained to calculate odds and outcomes in milliseconds, did the math. April. New York. The charity gala, where he'd been forced to play civilized for the benefit of his legitimate business interests. He'd hated every moment of it until she'd stumbled into him at the bar, champagne drunk and laughing, with eyes that didn't know to be afraid of him. One night, he'd told himself it was a mistake, a lapse in the iron discipline that kept him alive in a world where weakness was a death sentence. He'd left before dawn and forced himself to forget her name, Emmanuella Clark. He pulled up the security footage he kept on everyone who'd ever touched him. There she was, radiant in a gold dress, her hand on his arm, looking at him like he was just a man instead of a monster. And there, in the timestamp, April 2nd. He did the math again. 8 months. The baby was his. Jin Min stood, and every man in the room went silent. Clear my schedule, he said, his voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. Get the jet ready. We're going to America. His second-in-command, Yuri, knew better than to ask questions, but his eyes widened when Jin Min pulled up the GPS coordinates. Boss, I know exactly where it is. Jin Min's smile was a blade in the dark. And I know exactly who put her there. Jin Min had the power to ignore that message. He chose not to. You have the power to ignore this subscribe button. But if you want to see what happens when a Mafia king goes to war for a woman carrying his child, don't scroll past. Hit subscribe. Because the next chapter, the Parks have no idea what's coming for them. Emmanuella had made it halfway to Gate C when the airport changed. She felt it before she saw it, a shift in the air, a collective pause in the chaos of holiday travel. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. TSA agents straightened. Even the children went quiet. Black SUVs pulled up to the terminal entrance, doors opening in synchronized precision. Men in dark suits poured out, moving with military efficiency, their earpieces glinting under the fluorescent lights. They weren't airport security. They were something else entirely. Something that made grown men step back and mothers pull their children close. Emmanuella pressed herself against a pillar, another contraction twisting through her, but she couldn't look away. The crowd parted like a sea as more men entered, forming a corridor through the terminal. And then he appeared. Jin Min walked through the terminal like he owned it. Maybe he did. His black overcoat was dusted with snow, his expression carved from granite, and his eyes God. His eyes scanned the crowd with predatory focus until they landed on her. Emmanuella's breath caught. She knew that face. April, New York. The man who'd touched her like she was porcelain and kissed her like she was salvation. The man who'd disappeared before sunrise without a word. He was walking toward her now, and the entire airport seemed to hold its breath. She tried to straighten, to look less like she was dying, but another contraction hit and she doubled over with a cry she couldn't suppress. Strong hands caught her before she fell. Jin Min knelt in front of her. This man who made senators sweat and CEOs beg and cupped her face with hands that could break bones but were currently gentle as prayer. Who did this to you? His voice was quiet, controlled, terrifying in its calmness. Emmanuella's tears finally broke free. They left me, my husband's family. They took everything and they just... Names. It wasn't a request. The Parks. Daniel Park. His mother. Jin Min's jaw tightened. He stood, lifting her effortlessly into his arms like she weighed nothing. "You're safe now," he said. Then, to his men, "Find them." The terminal erupted into motion. The private jet was obscene in its luxury. Cream leather seats that reclined into beds. A bedroom with Egyptian cotton sheets. A full medical station where a doctor, an actual doctor, was currently checking her vitals and administering an IV for dehydration. Emmanuella lay there, warm for the first time in hours, and tried to reconcile the man from April with the man who'd just commandeered an international airport like it was his personal kingdom. Jin Min sat across from her, his coat discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and decorated with ink she didn't remember from that night. A dragon, she realized. Its tail disappeared beneath the fabric, wrapped around his arm like a living thing. "The contractions are slowing," the doctor said in Korean, then switched to English for her benefit. "Stress-induced. The baby is stable, but she needs rest. Complete rest." Jin Min nodded once, and the doctor disappeared into another section of the jet, leaving them alone with the hum of engines and 30,000 feet of comb between them and everything that had hurt her. "You're him," Emmanuella said finally, her voice hoarse. "The Ice King. I heard Daniel's father mention that name once. He said you were..." She stopped, because the word that came next was monster. "What I am," Jin Min said, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, "is the father of your child. What I am is the man who will burn down everyone who touched you. But what I need to know is this." His eyes locked onto hers, and she saw something raw beneath the ice. "Did you know? About the baby? About me?" Emmanuella's hand went to her belly. "I found out 2 months after New York. I tried to find you, but you were a ghost. No last name, no number. And then Daniel proposed and I thought..." Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe I could give this baby a father who'd stay. I'm staying." The words were a vow, a threat, a promise all at once. "I'm never leaving, and neither are you." Outside the window, clouds stretched like cotton fields, and Emmanuella realized she was flying toward a life she didn't understand with a man who terrified and saved her in equal measure. Emmanuella's life changed in one phone call. Your support can change this channel's life in one click. If you're invested in seeing her get the revenge she deserves, hit that subscribe button. Don't let this story disappear like the Parks wanted her to disappear. Emmanuella slept like the dead, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion. Jin Min watched her for a moment, the rise and fall of her chest, the way her hand rested protectively over their child. Then he stepped into the jet's private office and closed the door. Yuri was waiting with a tablet and a look that said he'd already started digging. Park Industries, shipping conglomerate, primarily South Korean roots with expansion into Southeast Asia. Net worth approximately $8 billion. The family controls 62% of voting shares. Had a net worth, Jin Min corrected, taking the tablet. He scrolled through the financial architecture of the Park empire, seeing it the way a demolition expert sees a building not for what it was, but for where to place the charges. Who holds their debt? Mixture. Goldman has the largest position. Then there's a consortium of Korean banks. Jin Min made his first call. It lasted 3 minutes. Goldman's VP of Asian markets listened, laughed nervously, then stopped laughing. By the time Jin Min hung up, Park Industries' credit line had been quietly frozen pending routine review. The second call went to a friend in the Korean Financial Supervisory Service. Not a friend, exactly. A man who owed Jin Min his career and his eldest son's life. I need a compliance audit, Jin Min said. Park Industries. Deep. Find everything. He paused. And leak it. The third call was to his own trading floor. Short every Park asset, every subsidiary, every holding, every stock they've touched. When Seoul opens, I want a bloodbath. He set the phone down and pulled up the live market feeds. Park Industries was already trending on financial news sites. Rumors of insolvency, whispers of fraud, the kind of speculation that made investors panic. By the time the Korean markets opened in 3 hours, it would be a stampede. Jin Min poured himself whiskey and watched the numbers fall. This wasn't revenge. This was just the opening move. He had 8 months of rage to satisfy, and the Parks were about to learn that abandoning a pregnant woman was the least of their sins. The real sin was abandoning his. The Park family's Christmas had been perfect. Champagne on the flight, laughter at the problem they'd so elegantly disposed of. Mrs. Park had even toasted to family purity as they'd crossed over the Pacific. They'd landed in Seoul with the satisfaction of people who believed they controlled their own destiny. The gate to their Gangnam estate was open. That was the first sign something was wrong. The second sign was the moving trucks in the circular driveway. What the hell? Mr. Park's driver slammed on the brakes as men in black uniforms carried a Louis XVI settee, Mrs. Park's prized piece, down the front steps and loaded it onto a truck. Mrs. Park was out of the car before it fully stopped, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble. What is the meaning of this? This is private property. I'm calling the police. A man stepped out of the front door. Not one of the movers. Someone else. Someone whose face Mr. Park recognized from very different circles, very dangerous circles. Yuri, Jin Min's right hand. The property has been seized, Yuri said with the kind of politeness that made threats unnecessary. Outstanding debts. Financial malfeasance. The courts were very efficient once they saw the evidence. Evidence? What evidence? We don't have debts. Mr. Park's voice climbed. Our stock is currently trading at $4 a share. Yuri interrupted. Down from 137 at yesterday's close. Congratulations. You're now worth less than the furniture we're removing. Daniel pushed forward, his phone already at his ear, calling lawyers, calling board members, calling anyone who might have answers. Every call went to voicemail. Every door was suddenly closed. Mrs. Park's face had gone white. Who did this? Yuri smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Someone who doesn't appreciate how you treat pregnant women. He gestured to the open door. You have 10 minutes to collect personal items. Clothes, photos. Everything else is collateral now. Behind him, framed in the doorway of their own home like he owned it, stood Jin Min. And on his arm, wrapped in a cashmere blanket and looking like a queen surveying conquered territory, was Emmanuella Clark. The Parks threw Emmanuella away like garbage on Christmas Eve. Don't throw this channel away. If you want to see karma hit the Parks where it hurts most, subscribe now. Stories like this only continue when people like you show up, will you? Emmanuella should have stayed on Jin Min's arm, should have let him handle this, but 8 months of swallowing her voice had left her with words sharp enough to draw blood. She stepped forward, and Daniel's eyes finally found hers. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or just embarrassment at being caught. Why? Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her. Why marry me at all if you were just going to throw me away? Daniel's jaw worked. His mother tried to pull him back, but he shook her off with the first bit of spine Emmanuella had ever seen him show. The Choi family, he said finally. Choi Min-seo. She's the daughter of the Choi Holdings chairman. Jin Min supplied from behind Emmanuella, his voice carrying dark amusement. 5th largest conglomerate in Korea. I'm familiar with them. Daniel's face flushed. We've been engaged since we were children. A merger, really. But she was studying abroad and my father wanted me to learn how to handle Western business partners. He looked at Emmanuella with something close to pity. You were practice, an experiment in assimilation. And when Min-seo came back, I became inconvenient, Emmanuella finished. You became impossible, Daniel corrected coldly. When we found out the baby wasn't mine, it was almost a relief. We didn't have to feel guilty anymore. You handed us the perfect excuse on a silver platter. His lip curled. Did you really think we'd let you trap a Park heir with another man's bastard? Emmanuella's breath caught, but she didn't let him see it hurt. Maybe because the man behind her had already shown her what real protection looked like, even if it came wrapped in violence. The baby complicated things, Mrs. Park interjected, her voice acid. How could Daniel marry properly with a bastard child tied to his name? Jin Min moved then, faster than Emmanuella had seen him move before, and suddenly he was standing between her and the Parks with the kind of stillness that preceded earthquakes. Call my child that again, he said quietly, and I'll make sure your family name is wiped from every record in this country. He pulled a document from his coat and handed it to Emmanuella. Divorce papers. Pre-signed by Daniel, dated 2 days before Christmas. He never planned to bring you home, Jin Min said. They had these drawn up weeks ago. He offered her a pen, and in that moment, she understood. This wasn't his revenge to take, it was hers. Emmanuella took the pen. Her hand didn't shake as she signed her name, then paused. What happens to them now? Jin Min's smile was winter itself. Whatever you want. The penthouse overlooked the Han River, a wall of windows that turned Seoul into a galaxy of lights. Emmanuella stood there wrapped in one of Jin Min's shirts, her bare feet sinking into carpet that probably cost more than her entire Chicago apartment. Below, the city that had rejected her now sprawled like an offering. Jin Min appeared behind her with tea ginger, for the nausea, and guided her to the couch with a gentleness that still surprised her. The same hands that had dismantled the Park Empire in under 12 hours now adjusted a blanket over her legs with infinite care. What did you decide? He asked. About them. Emmanuella had thought about it on the drive from the mansion. The satisfaction of revenge versus the exhaustion of carrying hate. Let them keep enough to survive, she said finally. A small apartment. Basic income. I want them to live long lives remembering what they lost. Jin Min's smile was slow and approving. Mercy. I didn't expect that. Not mercy, she corrected. I want them to watch what we build. I want them to see our child grow up powerful and loved and completely out of their reach. Our child. He said it like he was tasting the words, learning their weight. His hand covered hers on her belly, and for the first time, the baby kicked directly into his palm. His eyes widened, something raw and unguarded, flashing across his face. I can't promise you a normal life, he said quietly. I can't promise you safety or peace or anything that looks like what you thought you wanted. But I can promise you this. His other hand cupped her face, tilting it toward his. No one will ever make you beg for a place at a table again. You won't sit at the table. You'll own it. Our child won't inherit scraps from the Park name. They'll inherit an empire with the Clark Min name written in steel. Emmanuella leaned into him, this dangerous man who'd become her sanctuary. Outside, snow began to fall on Christmas Day, covering Seoul in white. A blank page, a new beginning. Merry Christmas, she whispered. Jin Min kissed her forehead. Welcome home. Emmanuella fought to be seen, to be valued, to matter. You've watched her entire journey from abandoned to unstoppable. If her story touched you, if you felt her pain and celebrated her victory, then subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're worth more than how others treat them. This is the end of Emmanuella's story, but it's just the beginning of what we're building here. Don't let this be the last story you see from us. Click that subscribe button. Make sure you're here for the next person who deserves their justice.